Hey everybody, proudly brought to you in low quality and low definition, this is Bad Guy Labs, where experiments in free thought are done. It's thought experiments done by freethinkers like us. I'm Jason Emerson, here with my partner Cole Koenig.
Hello.
We're here to accept the job of being the bad guys so you don't have to. But if you'd like, you could join us as honorary bad guys.
Please do.
We will accept you.
Probably.
We love all of you. So, top of the show, social media time. You can email us at BadGuyLabsChannel@gmail.com. Our YouTube channel is also called BadGuyLabsChannel. Our Facebook is Bad Guy Labs, and we're at Bad Guy Labs on Twitter. We would like it if you liked us on Facebook and subscribed to us on YouTube and on Twitter and sent us emails and twatted and commented and the occasional nude photo would be great, which is what twatting is. We decided to coin that.
So if you haven't been keeping up,
yeah,
now you know.
Twatting is the accidental tweeting of your nude form.
So accidentally send us naked pictures.
And very important, make sure you tell your friends. That word of mouth is a big part of how we are going to slowly but surely dominate the world with our burgeoning media empire. So thanks in advance.
Yeah.
Running right into everything into the show. My challenge this week from Cole in the sexual euphemism challenge is performing exploratory surgery. So we'll see if I can make it, or if I'm an utter failure.
So it's a little bit more clinical than past sexual euphemism challenges, but I think it'll work. I think you can do it.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna be completely honest with all these sexual euphemism challenges, and if I fail it, I fail it, and I'm not gonna try to like sort of jam it in somewhere. Which, by the way, is going to be my challenge for you next week.
That's not very euphemistic of you. I demand more metaphor in my challenge.
The gears will be turning in my head, but I'm going to try to give all of you people quality sexual euphemisms. So we'll just see how it goes, and whatever happens, happens.
That's true. I'll admit, I'm not functioning at my optimum. Usually performing exploratory surgery. However, humorous those of you out there may find it, it was not to me a diamond in the rough, as I prefer most of my euphemisms to be. So
yeah. So I guess we'll run right into everything. I think probably we should talk about the courts in Italy. That was, I guess, a qualification of what we call trends that are ruining our culture. We should have like a jingle for that. Trends that are ruining our culture.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what sort of noises should be accompanying that, like some sort of well-known outtake from a reality show. I don't know.
Well, I guess maybe like one of the stingers that you hear on one of the main news shows, like that sort of dramatic, that sort of thing.
We'll work on it.
Yeah, or maybe we'll just won't do shit. So one of those things will happen. And that's our personal.
We'll try to activate it some way or another in your mind, but more or less this is something that we talk about anyway, so it just sort of worked as a show topic, or really a genre of show discussion material.
Yeah. So I would say we're both in agreement that one of the trends that is ruining our culture, and something we've touched on before, is when courts and legislators try to say something about science. And in this case, in Italy, the Italian courts just convicted some seismologists for not predicting an earthquake that happened a while back, and they got 6 years in prison. So
I think they got some pretty hefty fines too.
This is probably, see, many of our topics overlap, and I would have also, if it hadn't been a trend that's ruining our culture, I would have labeled it under positive piracy. And what I mean there is, if that happened to me, and I was like out on bail or something, There's no fucking way in hell I would show up for my 6-year prison sentence for not accurately predicting an earthquake. That's just ridiculous.
To seek some sort of asylum.
I would either seek asylum or I would just live on the run. Like, those guys didn't do anything wrong.
No.
And they should run. They should run and should not pay their fines. I know their life's going to suck if that happens, but, I mean, I just do not believe in punishing people who do the right thing. And this is a clear case of that. I think those guys should live the life of pirates and feel completely justified in doing so.
Yeah. Well, it also could have been to associate with one of our other categories. It also could have been a fuck you of the week to the Italian judge or judges who decided the verdict and the damages.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Because fuck that guy, or guys, or people.
Yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and give them a good, hearty, wholesome, whatever, gusto, fuck you.
Yes, fuck you. Hold on, here I got it. Judge Marco Billy.
You, sir, are our fuck you of the week.
You are an asshole.
And I don't know much about Italian law, how it compares to American law. If they can appeal this, if they decide not to live like pirates, that sucks. I don't know what Italian prisons are like compared to like American prisons. Like if they're more like laid back.
The guards are on scooters.
They're like ciao, like
Ciao.
the old Eddie Izzard joke,
Yeah.
just all on Vespas. Ciao. Okay, I'm in prison now. All right, ciao.
Just hanging out.
I don't know
Not
whether
giving a shit.
if it's an American thing or if this is worldwide. Just the amount of hardcore butt fucking that goes on, gang rape style. And I don't know if they're like the equivalent of. I guess it's a prison thing everywhere. Like, is there like an Aryan Brotherhood in Italian prisons or something similar? And whatever else. All these different.
I don't know. I really don't know much about the incarceration systems around the world, except for, did you watch the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies?
Nah, I haven't seen those yet.
So there's sort of a depiction of the Swedish prison system. And granted, the guy who goes to jail, he went to jail for like some sort of bullshit, like white collar crime thing. But like he just had like a dorm room he lived in. And when he was done, he just left. It was bizarre.
Okay.
Yeah, so if that's what a lot of European prisons are like you just basically get a studio, a very small studio apartment that you have to live in for however much time. I'd go to prison for this shit, I would leave the country. But like if I had killed someone and I had to sit in a dorm room for 15 years on my laptop, no problem.
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be ideal, but I could see far worse things. Well, they
have dramatically smaller prison populations than we do too.
That's what I wondered about the American system, if that's part of the reason why our prisons, just sort of in the popular culture, are made out to be so horrible. Mm-hmm. If it's because they're crowded and American attitude might have something to do with it. I'm not sure. I just don't know, but that sucks. Any kind of imprisonment, they're taking away these guys' freedom, which that just sucks balls.
Well, and especially, yeah. Well, one thing that I just thought of, it's the two places I definitely don't want to be in jail are the United States or Russia. After that, I have to start examining the evidence, but I know that right off the top.
Probably a Chinese prison isn't the greatest either.
Yeah.
Although, I wonder, whenever I think of Asian culture, I think of, a different way of doing things that's more, about, sort of old-fashioned values and respect and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if a Chinese prison isn't as bad as a Russian or American prison because they have, or maybe they're just a bunch of motherfuckers in there. I don't know.
Could be. I don't know.
They whenever I think of Asian culture, I think of a lot of sort of bowing and acceding. What am I trying to say?
So respect, etiquette,
that sort of thing.
Sort of stuff.
And I'm that's it's just the first thing in my head is Chinese prison manners. Everybody's very respectful and sort of quiet. They just sort of sit in like a lotus position all day. You know, I'm sure they're just a bunch of motherfuckers in there,
but they've all got TB.
Yeah,
that's the only downside.
You know, like, but yeah, Russian prison is probably scary as fuck. But
that reminds me of a story my wife told me when she was in school about a professor who they were talking about vaccines, and he said something weird about like you want to make sure your hepatitis vaccines are up to date if you ever find yourself in a Russian prison.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was hepatitis, but anyway.
So the gist of this discussion is once again that people who aren't scientists and who don't understand science and are politically motivated should not have anything to do with judging or legislating science. And in this case, not only, you know, it's far worse than like, you know, some douches trying to like revalue pi or or trying to, you know, make a law regarding like a vaccine, which is the opposite of what science would say. It's actually taking people who did nothing wrong. You know, it's bad enough when you fuck up like the world in general, but you can't actually see any of the individual victims. But in this case, we can see the victims. Like they're going to be put away, and having people going to prison for something that's not wrong is just at the top of my list for shit that sucks.
Right. Should we? I just realized. Should we sort of talk a little bit more about the story, or did we do that already? Or
no, we haven't really covered the specifics of it.
So up to this point, this has been for people in the know, sort of.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Just about half of what we say.
Well, that's true. That's true. But you know, just trying to be kind to our new listeners.
Yeah, it's always good to fill in, you know, for anybody who doesn't know. There's a lot of shit that a lot of people don't know, including me. So
what I know, and you fill in anything you know that I don't, is basically that there was an earthquake in Italy in a town called L'Aquila in 2009, and the situation is basically like, I guess there was the earthquake and they were trying to predict tremors, and I guess they looked to the seismologists who were monitoring that part of the country or who are from that part of the country, and I guess I don't know if they said don't worry or what they said exactly, but they didn't tell anybody exactly what to do. They just said we don't know what to expect, really. There may be tremors, there may not be tremors, so it's not that you should definitely get out, but there might be tremors because that happens, and we don't know how strong they're going to be. And the other part of it that I was reading about actually this morning was that apparently nobody has stepped in to try to like fix a lot of the damage since 2009. So this sort of sounds like, if I'm using the term correctly, like a kangaroo court where they already decided they were guilty because nobody else is trying to fix the situation. So they're just doing this from a purely punitive place in their hearts. They just want to fuck these guys because they feel fucked and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah. That sounds like it covers.
Yeah, so I sort of went from explaining it to slid right into condemning it again. But that's cool with me.
Yeah, that's fine. Earthquake prediction is, you know, to use an old expression, it's as much an art as it is a science.
Right.
I'm not sure you can really predict earthquakes very well. I guess you can talk about trends, especially over longer and longer periods of time. Mm-hmm. But I don't know of any way that you can predict an earthquake. And this is not only going to screw these guys, but it's going to change the way science consulting is done in Italian government and possibly other places if people get scared. Like, it's just another form of negative reinforcement to condition some segment of the population. Mm-hmm. So now the scientific community, especially in Italy, is going to think twice before they contribute anything.
Right.
It's because they don't want to get railroaded like this. And
in this case, it could even influence the rest of Europe, like talking about like potential like outbreaks of diseases or anything like that. Telling people to get vaccinated. Yeah, it's foodborne illnesses or tainted food in general.
There needs to be some sort of measure of protection so that people can feel confident to say what they honestly believe and know that there won't be any repercussions,
Right.
or to do their best, honestly do their best. These seismologists, I believe, were doing the best that they could, and I think that they're getting railroaded by people who have a gross misunderstanding of how seismology and science in general is done.
Right.
And there's no way to really redress this grievance. I guess to use. I mostly know the American system, so I'm just going to use a lot of buzzwords and things that I know from that. But a redress of grievances is important, and we're supposed to have it here, and that's another bitch rant that I could go on another time, that our ability
Right.
to have a redress of grievances is being eroded every decade or so. But in Italy, I don't know if they have anything like that. It's important, though. It's one of the ways that you define a government that's liberty oriented.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for it, much like why we have a Fifth Amendment to the Constitution that says that you don't have to incriminate yourself. All these things sort of work together. They mesh so that people don't get railroaded. At the end of the day, a system, a democracy that's liberty oriented and all that good stuff, however you want to put it, it's there so people don't get railroaded by ignorant people. That's what it comes down to. And there's a crack in this system that's actually allowing the opposite to happen. And that's what the problem is. These cracks need to be patched. And, part of the reason why the United States was formed, I think, is because the founders saw a bunch of cracks that needed to be patched. And they didn't do a perfect job, but and ongoing in other democratic countries, I hope that the people there are trying to find ways to repair the cracks that people slip through when they get railroaded. But these guys, I wonder, if they're going to be able to sue eventually, if maybe the judgment is reversed.
Yeah, again, it's sort of the difference. We don't know exactly what. I'm assuming, a lot of European countries, it's modeled after, Roman civil law. But I don't know what that means in terms of appeals or, the difference between criminal and civil suits or anything like that. I've realized this as I've gotten older, that I really only understand the English common law system.
Yeah.
The only thing I think is true, and hopefully there's someone out there who has either the energy or the knowledge to tell me differently if I'm wrong, but the difference between the English common law system and a Roman civil system is that, when we go to court, there's shades of gray as regards guilt. Obviously in the end the verdict is either guilty or not guilty, but you could go in on murder charges and end up getting only convicted of manslaughter because they can put a whole bunch of charges against you. And you could say all these things about, oh well, I might have done it, but here's why I'm not really guilty. Whereas in a Roman civil system, if you at any point say, oh yeah, I did it, but the buts are that's no, you're done. So it's only arguing about whether or not you've committed the crime, not the circumstances or the motivations or anything else surrounding it. If you had, do you remember watching in Rome when Titus Pullo went on trial?
I'm a bit fuzzy
because he got caught assassinating people.
I'm trying to. Oh, and that's when he
fights in the arena. And
yeah.
Him. So if you don't know HBO series Rome, you should watch it. But in any case, the guy defending him is well, you don't understand. He's poor. He's a veteran soldier. He doesn't have anything else to do. And the guy was wait, are you saying you're not denying his guilt? And the guy was well, no, I'm not saying he didn't do it. And I'm just saying there are reasons why he did it. And they go, oh, well, if you're saying he did it, then we're done.
Well, I can see.
And that sounds like an instance in which I go, well, in 20 BC, that might have been the best system on the planet, but I'm pretty sure I would prefer the English common law system. People can certainly abuse it and go, well, I didn't mean to kill him. Here's what happened. Mm-hmm. But that also seems to take into account the fact that just whether or not you did something or didn't do something is not really the whole story.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of... so I always think it's better to have more information than less.
Yeah.
And it reminds me a lot of cherry picking. Like... or almost straw manning, where you and it's also black and white thinking. It's a false dichotomy, that guilty or not guilty thinking, and there are a lot of extenuating circumstances. So it makes me wonder if the seismologists went through something similar, but
they may have.
The declaration of their initial crime, I don't know what that was.
I think it's they got convicted of manslaughter.
That's tough there, even, because it's not like they went out and stabbed somebody. It's also...
Well, to me it would be like, to me this is equivalent to like say you're waiting for weather predictions of a hurricane or a tornado, and the meteorologists say, yeah, there's a hurricane and a tornado coming, but we don't know how. Like, say they said, we don't know how bad it's going to be, we don't know where exactly it's going to hit, so we don't know, so we can't really tell you what to do. And then the hurricane hits, your grandma dies, and you sue the people or you bring the people to court for manslaughter. That to me is the same thing here. Is they're trying to do something which is not precise, which in the case of the meteorologist implicitly indicates a certain personal responsibility to get yourself out if you can, and certainly not to blame the weatherman for how good or how bad his predictions are. Like, to me it's very equivalent.
So I don't know if other people have the same attitude that I do regarding running and not accepting what's been stuck to you. Like, I only know what I think, and I'm not the most normal guy in the world.
Okay.
I would fucking run like hell, and I wonder if they're being held because they're like considered a flight risk or something. Though, I mean, that would be, you know. And I can also be a rather angry man sometimes, and you know, I could see how, like, if I got railroaded by the system, like, I would probably feel less bad about hurting people in the future, especially people that were involved in the system. This is another danger, is, you know, if the system has a flaw in it like this, it's making things worse. Like, it's sort of like when you send somebody to prison and they're non-violent or they didn't do anything at all, and then when they come out, they're worse. You know, that happens all the time too. Like, that's another one of my gripes. And all these things are sort of interrelated. Like, the system is supposed to fix things, not make them worse. And this is all pointing to the system is making things worse.
Right.
I mean, people get angry and resentful, and they get trained to try to survive as best they can, and you know, they have the desire for freedom, and they have needs and all this stuff. If you're fighting that, if the system takes that away, the system is wrong, and the system needs to be changed or just completely ignored and or overthrown. So, once again, shame on the authorities involved who try to legislate or judge science and try to basically jam a square peg into a round hole, that kind of thing.
Right. And
declare things about science and reality that aren't true. These guys are guilty of manslaughter. It's just fucking retarded that they think that they can hold these guys responsible. And
here's an upside: is this means that we can continue welcoming European scientists to our shores for the next decade or two to come.
Yeah.
They're gonna, you know, as long as we don't start that kind of shit here, it's gonna be like, hey, if you've got some great Italian seismologists in 6 years,
yeah,
you want a job with the USGS? Come on over.
So I guess we'll keep our eye on this and see if anything else develops. I wonder if there's going to be like a petition or something, or some sort of outcry.
I would hope so, because it's fucked up.
I mean, I wonder if like the judge involved can somehow be disbarred, or if something can be done. We'll just have to keep our eyes on it.
If I were them, I'd look for like a consulate somewhere. I don't know what big cities are near, but I would immediately start looking for like an American or a Swiss or the fucking Canucks, somebody.
At that point, I would settle for the closest consulate,
Yeah,
like, whatever it may be, like
the Iranian consulate.
like, guys, I need help. Like, I will happily move to Iran. Like, I will work for you guys in a scientific capacity. A free day in Iran, if you can call it that, is far better than an imprisoned day in Italy. So,
I guess that actually might be the smartest move, is to go for a country like that.
yeah, maybe. I mean,
So because that gives them the opportunity to be like, so when Italy and whoever else comes knocking, they go, don't know who you're talking about. Can't help you, man.
yeah. So I guess that we pretty much exhausted that. Moving on to another topic: bag of dirty tricks in the con game. So I have a packet. It's called the See Clearly method, and it's from VIT, or the Vision Improvement Technologies company. So I ordered this years ago. So years ago, I was a giant scientific dumbass who didn't know anything. So just putting that out there now.
Fair enough.
I got better, probably in an overcompensating kind of a way.
Okay.
I went from like 0 to 100% in regarding bullshit detection, and it's things like this that were the catalyst for that. So also, full disclosure, when I was like a kid, my dad liked to listen to Rush Limbaugh, so I spent years listening to Rush Limbaugh, and then I guess I put in about 15 years, starting from like, let me think, maybe around the age of 12. No, age of 10, up until maybe around 25. Around that time, I like it started to. It was like a fade where, at the end of listening, the end of my 15-year run of listening to Rush Limbaugh, like I still listened, but more and more I was like, nah, that's bullshit. Nah, that's bullshit too. But I still listened, right. And then I eventually just quit, and then like I just kept going, reevaluating my positions and so on and so forth. But I put in a lot of years listening to it, and despite all the bullshit that's involved in that show and his thoughts, I learned a lot anyway. When he was right, I learned something there, and then all the times he was wrong, later I learned something there too.
Right.
So
that's a lot of years to put in.
Yeah. So I'm one of those. I'm sort of like a double agent, I guess, now, where I have a lot of experience with the other side. Not that I'm a liberal. I'm just nothing. I'm just centrist. I have a lot of more liberal leanings now, but if you put me in a room full of liberals, I look like the conservative. So I'm just like a man without a country.
Well, yeah, that would happen in the room of conservatives too, I think.
Yep, definitely. So, and in the room full of libertarians, I would look like an authoritarian, and vice versa in a room full of authoritarians. So, but one of the things my younger self thought was, if Rush Limbaugh runs a commercial for something, then that product or service must be honest and reliable, because Rush Limbaugh is somebody that I like, and he says he's honest and reliable and believes in like the truth and doing the right thing and yada yada. So, and I have nearsightedness, and so there was this ad running all the time for the See Clearly method. So I called the number, and so there's a series of deceptive tactics that go on here. The first one being, I called the number because I just had a few questions about it, and the operator on the other end, the commercial said, call our number for free information and blah blah blah. Very sort of friendly and innocent sounding, and
Oh,
then
of course.
the operator immediately tries to like. They don't even really seem to be aware that the commercial says there's like a free information that you can get. They're just like, okay, so like
Can I get your credit card number
Yeah.
first, and then we'll move on?
Right, that's sort of what they do. They just go right into selling it to you and trying to get you to place an order.
Nice.
So, I don't know. One thing led to another, so I ended up ordering it. Although I wasn't that big of a dummy because there was a 30-day money back thing, and which I ended up taking advantage of. Interesting that when you call the thing and you're like, nah, I don't want it anymore. The guy spends like 10 minutes trying to talk you into keeping it, and they're like, if you keep this, I'll give you my personal number and like personally coach you like through your information packet and your exercises and everything. And they just keep upping it, and finally, if you just keep saying enough times, no, I just want my money back and I don't want it anymore, they will eventually do that for you.
Wow.
But it's a lot of pressure, a lot of high pressure tactics, a lot of sort of mental games, and the other thing I did is I photocopied everything before I sent it back for my own informational purposes, of course. And
Now you can put it online.
I probably wouldn't do that because I'm not sure what sort of repercussions there would be there.
Oh, I just mean throw it out in the ether as a PDF. You know what I mean?
Oh, like anonymously?
Yeah, in a way they like. Yeah, there's like account and order numbers up there. Just black those out.
I suppose, yeah. Although I'll bet you somebody else probably already did it. But
Oh, I know. I wasn't telling you you should do it. I was just saying,
yeah,
in this age of piracy.
yeah. You're absolutely right about that. I'm not going to disagree with you.
All right.
I'm just always sort of thinking about how like a company like these guys could fuck me. So
Fair enough.
I'm always laying a lot of groundwork to protect myself. But yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink's as good as a nudge, don't mind Ben.
So I got my packet in the mail, and I understood like the structure of the eyeball, and I knew what nearsightedness was and what caused it, and it was about the shape of the eyeball and how the focusing mechanism was a little bit fucked up because of the shape of the eyeball. Like I was clear about that. I didn't know what the see clearly method involved exactly, but their claims were so powerful that I couldn't imagine a company just making such bold claims that were utter bullshit. But it turns out, in that case, I was wrong. Companies can indeed just make out-and-out hardcore claims, and they're bullshit. That is a possibility that can happen, and it happens all the time. Live and learn. So you get the packet in the mail. It's like a book. It's like a fairly nice-looking book, and a bunch of the shit they give you is charts, like smaller and smaller print charts that you're supposed to practice on, and weird looking things with like circles on them and images, and it has to do with like focusing exercises. There's one that looks like a maze that you're supposed to track your eyeball through, with a lot of like jagged lines and dots that you stop and start on.
Yeah, that one was weird. I'm glad you explained that one to me because I was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, you're supposed to start at the beginning and just like focus hard on the line and follow the line all the way through the maze. And it's supposed to exercise your eye, I guess.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you could change your eyeball muscles and that would somehow reshape your cornea, that would work.
Yeah. So I didn't know enough about eyeballs. I was like, all right, I don't know anything about anything really. Maybe this big company that makes these claims and seems to be a big successful company knows what they're talking about.
Right.
So that's why.
Well, I saw on the front of it there is something like from an optometrist.
Oh yeah. They have the testimonial part, where not only are there many satisfied customers apparently, although who knows?
Yeah.
They also use the argument from authority and say like optometrists etc. like back this method, and that's not to be believed all the time. That can be just a way of manipulating customers.
Especially after we've sent them on a trip to the Asian spa. Then the see clearly method is strongly endorsed.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of avenues for deception and bias, and you can always find some jackass that supports anything, especially if you pay him. And it doesn't mean anything. It just means they're trying to make money. They're trying to get it away from you, and they'll say anything. They'll say anything to get your money.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people out there like me who just didn't really know, didn't understand. I didn't understand the depth of marketing practices, and I don't know. I wonder sometimes if this was one of the things that turned me off of like conservative talk radio. Like, you fuckers, like you told me I could trust you and believe you, and maybe this was just one of the many things along the way that
just selling a shoddy bill of goods.
I mean, a lot of it too was me trying to relate to my father, and that's a strong motivator to get somebody to follow like a worldview. Is like if they want their father or some other figure to like pay attention to them,
right?
And this is one of the ways to do it. Like there's very little my father and I have in common, and that's always kind of been the case. And the older I get, the more clearly the dividing lines are drawn. When I was an adolescent, I guess I was more malleable, and I didn't have a ton in common with him then, but I guess I had more in common, or I was at least trying harder.
Yeah.
And
well, you're a kid. I mean, that's sort of
absolutely objectively and unbiasedly, I probably wouldn't have gotten into Rush Limbaugh. It was a combination of trying to relate to my father, and because that was back in the days when there was no internet and like not a lot on TV, and not everybody even had TV still, and video games were super expensive. There were no podcasts, and there was like a lot of labor I had to do like around the house. Like I spent months listening to conservative talk radio and like cementing the walls of my parents' basement. Like it was one of those old basements from the 1800s.
Oh,
and it was made out of rock, and like it had a ton of holes in it. And it was my job to just take buckets and buckets of cement and fill all the holes in. And then after I was done with everything, whitewash all of it. So
sounds like a good time.
That was months of just having conservative talk radio on every day for hours and just doing that job. And there was other jobs like that again involved a lot of listening to that shit.
Right.
So. But maybe I have to thank the See Clearly method for pissing me off. I don't know.
For making it easier for you to see clearly.
Hey.
Oh.
Huh.
They had no idea. I wonder how many fucking people who ran the place were like, "Oh, we love the irony." We just can't get over the irony of what we've named our product. We're such assholes, just raging assholes.
Wouldn't it be funny if the See Clearly method and the Vision Improvement Technologies Company was actually a liberal plant?
That would be nefarious, I must say.
That would be one of the most awesome capers pulled off of all time.
So all the advertisers on Rush Limbaugh are like liberal front companies,
just to piss off the listeners of the Rush Limbaugh program.
Oh man, it's George Soros. He's got his fingers in all these pies.
So that's the backstory of all this shit, and so moving to the table of contents. Basically, what it comes down to is they wanted you to do a series of ridiculous exercises for a roughly, I guess, half hour a day or more. There's like a time limit for each one, like 1 minute, 2 to 3 minutes, etc., and a list of different things. So
yeah, I'm especially skeptical of the squats. I'm kidding.
I was like, is that there?
That'd be fucking awesome if it were.
So some of the exercises were clock rotations, which that was where you're supposed to look at like the face of a clock type picture and just sort of go around it and around it with your eyes over and over again. Eye rolls, which is what it sounds like. pumping, which is where you put your like palm up against your eye socket and kind of pumped. These are all 1 to 2 minutes, depending on the thing.
Right.